It's on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim, Dan. I'm pretty sure you know that.
Over the past year, I've explored a handful of defunct TV channels, and judging by your reactions, a lot of you have really enjoyed each and every installment. I gotta be honest with you, the channels thing was going to be a one-off. I was going to jump to like another topic like video games, but since 2000s media is pretty nostalgic right now, you might as well strike the iron while it's hot. So, I did. With the AmusingLuis channel reaching 100,000 subscribers, I thought it was time to go big. I mean real big. I thought to myself, what if we took the defunct TV channel's format and combined it with what made the channel blow up in the first place? Icebergs. Oh yeah, we're really doing this. In this miniseries, we'll be covering not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, several not sequences later, not 118, not 119, but over 120 entries, and then some. I already lost count. To keep things digestible, I've broken it up into tiers. I'll start with Tier 1 being the most famous shutdowns. Tier 2 will feature channels that still come up in conversation. Tier 3 will have the less known niche channels, and Tier 4 and beyond will explore international territory. So we'll be talking about obscure, underground, and perhaps even illegal channels. Now, because this video is freaking huge, we had to chop this up into 3 parts. On the bright side, the research and writing is done, so expect parts 2 and 3 to drop sooner rather than later. Anyways, grab a snack, strap in, and get comfy, because this is part 1 of the defunct TV channel's Iceberg. But first, I'd like to ask you a question. Have you ever Googled your name or email? You might be surprised by what shows up. Names, phone numbers, maybe even addresses. You're probably asking yourself, how is this information all out there? Well, it mostly comes down to crummy data brokers. These companies collect and sell your personal data without your permission, and they make it really hard to remove it yourself. You might be thinking, I'm barely on social media, and besides, I use strong passwords. But here's the thing, even signing up for something once can put your data at risk. In fact, it was reported that a data breach where over 16 billion passwords were leaked. So odds are, your information's already floating out there. Even as someone who digs through the internet for content, my own credentials are probably sitting on some random website that I never even heard of. That's why I use Aura, today's sponsor. Aura automatically removes your info from data broker sites. It monitors the dark web, sends real-time fraud alerts, and includes a VPN, antivirus, password manager, and 24/7 US-based support. If anything goes wrong, you're covered with up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. If you want to try it out for yourself, head to aura.com/AmusingLuis and start your free 14-day trial. That's more than enough time to find out if your data is already out there. Don't wait for a breach to happen. Sign up today and let Aura do the hard work so you don't have to. Thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get started. Okay, so let's kick off this list by summarizing some well-known channels I've already covered in the past. After that, we'll dive into the more intriguing content. Starting off with G4. G4's legacy began in 1998 with the launch of Tech TV, which was originally named ZDTV after its parent company, Ziff Davis. The network catered to tech enthusiasts with shows like The Screensavers, Call for Help, and GameSpot TV. And yeah, this couldn't have come at a better time. During the height of the dot-com bubble boom of the late 90s, it became a hub for tech news, product reviews, and even anime through its late-night block, Anime Unleashed. Despite reaching 43 million homes, the channel struggled with low ratings and financial losses. That was until Comcast made the decision to purchase the failing network and merge it with their newest gaming channel, G4. Launched in 2002, this channel solely focused on gaming, starting with gaming-oriented shows like Portal, Arena, Cheat, and more. When the two channels merged to form G4 Tech TV, it blended gaming and tech content. However, by 2005, the Tech TV branding was discontinued, leading to the reduction of its technology and later gaming programs, where it soon pivoted to broader entertainment and made Attack of the Show, which replaced the Screensavers, and X-Play the flagship programs for the network until 2013, when original programming came to an end. For most of the late 2000s and 2010s, G4 became infamous for airing non-stop reruns of Cops and Cheaters, and once original programs came to an end, this alienated the core gamer audience, which caused ratings to drop and led to its closure at the end of 2014. In 2021, an effort was made to revive G4, reuniting much of the original crew and reorienting the focus towards gaming. However, by the time it returned, the landscape had evolved considerably, and despite its nostalgic appeal, the reboot struggled to gain any traction and was quietly discontinued after just 1 year.
The following program is from NET.
NET, or National Educational Television, was a precursor to the more recognized PBS and was a pioneer of educational public TV. Established in 1952 as the Educational Television and Radio Center, it initially distributed educational programs produced by local stations, but by 1954 it began operating as a network, offering a weekly package of programs that focused on in-depth topics like poverty, racism, and other social issues. Additionally, NET introduced audiences to groundbreaking shows like Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which helped establish the standard for educational television for children moving forward. While the channel was praised for its hard-hitting, socially conscious programming, that same boldness was a double-edged sword. Its politically charged content frequently created tensions with its affiliates and funders. These complications ultimately led to the establishment for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting in 1967, which became NET's primary funding source. But over time, NET's resources diminished and were folded into the newly established Public Broadcasting Service, or PBS. By 1970, NET merged with the New York City affiliate WNDT and rebranded as WNET, solidifying PBS as the main broadcasting channel moving forward. But yeah, that's now getting defunded. Originally launched as PBS Kids Sprout, this was a joint venture between PBS, Comcast, Sesame Workshop, and HIT Entertainment. As part of this venture, Sprout was supplied with a wide range of popular classics such as Barney, Bob the Builder, and Caillou, along with original programming blocks like The Sunny Side Up Show and The Good Night Show. But by 2017, Comcast had gained full control of the network and rebranded it as Universal Kids. The new network aimed to expand its audience beyond preschoolers by introducing DreamWorks animation series and youth-focused reality spin-offs. However, this drastic shift in demographics had negative consequences, resulting in a 30% drop in viewership in 2017, followed by a staggering 73% decline in 2018. By 2019, Universal Kids ceased producing original content and began relying on acquired shows and previously aired DreamWorks series. They even returned to programming aimed at a preschooler audience. Despite trying to bring back its original audience, Universal Kids struggled to establish a sustainable niche in an increasingly competitive and evolving media landscape, and just continuing operations no longer made sense. On March 6, 2025, Universal Kids officially ceased operations, with all kid-focused content migrating to Peacock and Netflix. Spike TV was originally launched as the Nashville Network, or TNN, on March 7, 1983. The channel focused on Southern culture and featured country music, variety shows, and rodeo. The channel was first owned by Gaylord Entertainment until 1997 when CBS purchased it through its Group W division, marking the beginning of its transition into a general entertainment channel. With this move, TNN introduced new shows including Roller Jam and professional wrestling through ECW Wrestling in 1999 and later replaced with WWF Raw in 2000. In 2003, TNN rebranded to Spike TV and was dubbed as the first network for men. As part of this rebrand, the network changed its lineup by introducing programs targeted at a male demographic, such as adult animation, TNA wrestling, mixed martial arts, and bizarre programs like A Thousand Ways to Die and Mansers. However, once these shows ran their course by the mid to late 2010s, the channel would shift focus into becoming inclusive to both men and women, mainly by making Bar Rescue and Lip Sync Battle its flagship programs at the time. But the rebrand wouldn't last long, as by January 2018, Spike TV would be rebranded as the Paramount Network, a channel aimed to position itself as a premium general entertainment network, similar to AMC or FX, to which has seen some success thanks to shows like Yellowstone. While the cable channel has faded, Spike still lives as a digital channel on the Pluto TV service, airing mostly outdoor programming. Teletoon. Cartoon Network is better. Sincerely, an American. No, just kidding. But if you grew up north of the border, this channel was your childhood. Launched on October 17, 1997, Teletoon was Canada's answer to Cartoon Network, but with its own identity and schedule. It aired a mix of Canadian, American, and international animated shows, often swinging between wholesome kid stuff during the day and bizarre, edgy animation at night. Now, even if you haven't watched the Teletoon channel, chances are you've seen their original shows: 16, Total Drama Island, Johnny Test, Braceface, Detentionaire, Delilah and Julius, Atomic Betty, just to name a few. But it would also carry shows from Cartoon Network and Boomerang as well. Teletoon also had their own version of Adult Swim in the form of Teletoon at Night, which served up adult animation like Clone High, Robot Chicken, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and let me tell you something about a friend of Boston Jimmy. It's forget about it. In the beginning, Teletoon started out in the hands of a few Canadian media players. The Family Channel held the reins with a 53.3% stake. YTV, under Shaw Communications, owned 26.7%, and the two animation studios, Sinor and Nirvana, rounded things out with 10% each. But by the late 90s, things began to shift. In 1999, Shaw Communications spun off its media division into a new company, Chorus Entertainment. That same year, Chorus snagged WIC's stake in the Family Channel, and by 2000, it outright bought Nelvana, pulling one of Teletoon's key content suppliers in-house. It wasn't until 2013 that Chorus finally took full ownership of Teletoon, cementing its grip on the Canadian kids television landscape moving forward. From there, the channel's identity began to morph. Heading into the 2010s, Teletoon began to resemble a Cartoon Network clone, airing more CN originals and gradually abandoning the homegrown charm that once set it apart. By the 2020s, it had become a semi-automatic loop channel of Teen Titans Go and The Amazing World of Gumball. Not that there's anything wrong with those shows, but let's be real, it just didn't feel like Teletoon anymore. It was essentially Cartoon Network in Canadian packaging. On March 27, 2023, Chorus Entertainment officially retired the Teletoon brand after 25 years and replaced the channel with a Canadian feed of Cartoon Network. While Teletoon is gone, its French counterpart Teletoon is still around, which is basically English Teletoon but in French. You could tell by the E's. Noggin was a Nickelodeon-owned network launched on February 2, 1999 as a joint venture between MTV Networks and Sesame Workshop. Talk about a weird blunt rotation. While many people associate the brand as a preschool network, it originally aimed to target tweens and teens. Noggin sought to demonstrate that educational programming could be both entertaining and engaging, and they succeeded in doing so. The original lineup included shows like The Electric Company and Ghost Rider, along with successful original programming such as The Fred on Your Head Show, A Walk in Your Shoes, and Ubi. You know, Ubi! In 2002, Noggin took it a step further by splitting its programming into two blocks, a daytime preschool block featuring the same name and a nighttime teen block called The N. The latter aimed to provide educational and personal development. The N aired notable shows like Degrassi, The Next Generation, South of Nowhere, Instant Star, and Beyond the Break. It also featured older Nickelodeon series like Clarissa Explains It All and The Adventures of Pete and Pete. The teen block would remain on the Noggin channel until 2007 when it became its own standalone network, replacing Nick Gas, making Noggin a 24/7 preschool channel. Although Sesame Workshop still managed to help co-produce shows for Noggin, more Nick Jr. original shows like Blue's Clues, Dora the Explorer, and Little Bear would soon be added to the schedule. By September 2009, Nickelodeon would undergo a massive rebrand, which replaced Noggin with the Nick Jr. channel. Although the Noggin channel was discontinued, the brand was later relaunched as a subscription-based streaming service that offered classic shows and exclusive content for preschoolers. However, over the years, the service gradually lost its identity and original programming, and by July of 2024, the service was discontinued once again. Looking into the Noggin.com website, you could see that it says rebooting, so there could be something coming soon. Who knows?
You're watching UPN. UPN. You're watching the WV11, home of Michigan J. Frog. Yeah.
Okay, so one day I'll do an in-depth look at these two networks in a full episode of Discontinued Nostalgia, because honestly, each of them could be a documentary on their own, but since we're covering more than one channel today, I'll just give a brief rundown for now. UPN and WB were both launched in January of 1995 with sky-high ambitions to become America's fifth network, standing alongside ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. And while their missions were similar, their paths, strengths, and downfalls tell two halves of the same story. UPN debuted on January 16, 1995 with Star Trek Voyager, pulling in a whopping 21.3 million viewers, an all-time high for the network that it never quite matched again. The network was backed by a joint venture between Chris Craft Industries and Paramount Television under the old Viacom banner. But in 2000, UPN was eventually fully taken over by Viacom. It wouldn't be until the corporate split of Viacom in 2005 that control of UPN shifted to the newly established CBS Corporation. But by then, the writing was on the wall. On September 15th, 2006, UPN signed off for good, closing the book on an ambitious but turbulent 11-year run. Although its life was short, UPN's programming was pretty good and diverse, to say the least. Sci-fi fans had Star Trek Voyager, Enterprise, and The Sentinel. Comedy lovers enjoyed hits like Moesha, The Parkers, Girlfriends, and All of Us, shows that centered on black families and experiences at a time when few other networks did that. Teens and young adults flocked to shows like Veronica Mars, Roswell, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which were shows that had jumped ship from the WB. Wrestling fans had WWE SmackDown, while reality TV lovers caught early seasons of America's Next Top Model. Despite its solid lineup, UPN struggled with branding. Like, what even was this channel? Was it the go-to for sci-fi, black sitcoms, teen dramas, wrestling, home movie reruns? Who really knows? What I'm trying to say is the identity was all over the place, and that scattered focus made it harder for audiences and advertisers to connect. Add in a string of ownership changes, declining ratings, and major affiliate losses, UPN's momentum slowly fizzled out. The WB, meanwhile, launched just a few days earlier on January 11, 1995, and was a joint venture between Warner Brothers and Tribune Broadcasting. The WB quickly found its niche with a laser focus on viewers aged 13 to 34. At the helm was Jamie Kellner, one of the key figures behind Fox's early success. From the start, the WB leaned hard into teen dramas and offbeat comedies. Dawson's Creek, Gilmore Girls, One Tree Hill, Everwood, and Felicity captured the angst and charm of coming-of-age storytelling that was really popular back then, and maybe still is today. The Supernatural crowd also had their fix with the aforementioned Buffy the Vampire Slayer and its spin-offs Angel and Charmed. Smallville reintroduced Superman for a younger audience, while The Wayans Brother and The Jamie Foxx Show brought out the comedy side of the channel. And then there's Kids WB, an entire block on its own. Weekdays and Saturday mornings exploded with Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Animaniacs, Batman the Animated Series, Pinky and the Brain, Tiny 2 Adventures, and much more. Basically shows that became staples for kids of the late 90s and early 2000s. I mean, oh my god, this was truly the place to go. It's also worth mentioning that UPN also had its own children's programming block, UPN Kids, which featured recognizable titles like Jumanji and The Incredible Hulk. But despite a few standouts, the block was largely overshadowed by the likes of Fox Kids, Kids WB, and other dominating weekend morning blocks. Despite its pop culture reach, the WB struggled in its later years. Its placement on UHF affiliate stations made it harder to find, which was something that was hurting them as well as UPN's visibility and reach from the beginning. Not to mention, as the teen drama wave that propelled its success began to fade, the network found itself oversaturated with similar content, and audiences started tuning out. Added with the rise of cable and early digital platforms, the WB's loyal following began to slip away. By 2006, both the WB and UPN were operating at a loss. Their parent companies, CBS and Warner Brothers, realized that neither network could sustain itself alone, so they joined forces. And so, in January of 2006, they announced a merger to form the CW, cherry-picking the best shows and affiliates from each. UPN would air its final broadcast on September 15, 2006, followed by the WB 2 days later on September 17th, closing out with a nostalgic farewell montage, marking the end to a bold, strange, but unforgettable era in television history. We still talk about you, WB Network. Toon Disney launched on April 18, 1998 to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the Disney Channel in the United States. The network primarily aired animated programs from the Disney afternoon and one Saturday morning blocks, as well as content from Geek Entertainment. By 2004, the channel expanded significantly with the introduction of Jetix, an action-adventure programming block that emerged following Disney's acquisition of Fox Family Worldwide. Jetix featured a lineup of action-heavy shows like Power Rangers, Digimon, and Yu-Gi-Oh!, along with a few original series made specifically for the block like Yin Yang Yo, Witch, and Get Ed. Over time, Jetix became a defining feature of Toon Disney's identity. However, this shift also led to a gradual decline in the presence of classic Disney cartoons. Eventually, live-action content like The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody made its way onto the channel, marking a significant departure from its animated roots. In late 2008, it would be announced that Toon Disney and Jetix would merge to become Disney XD, a new network aimed at a boy-centric demographic, which was intended to contrast with the more girl-focused Disney Channel at the time. Nowadays, it's hard to pinpoint what these networks are even doing nowadays. From what I hear, Disney XD leans towards preteens, while Disney Channel is trying to appeal towards a broader general audience. But yeah. ABS-CBN, which operated under the ABS-CBN Corporation, was the Philippines' oldest and most influential media network, and so its closure came as a shock to many who grew up watching it. Alto Broadcasting System, also known as ABS, launched on October 23, 1953 as the first TV channel not only in the Philippines but all of Southeast Asia. And the best part, it all aired in living color. Then, in 1967, ABS merged with the Chronicle Broadcasting Network, CBN for short, to form ABS-CBN. ABS-CBN was what you called an all-in-one channel, featuring everything from dramas, teleseries, reality shows, talk shows, and news. Thanks to the network's international distribution division, which made English dubbed versions of the most popular shows, several series gained international attention and were adapted in other countries across Asia, Europe, and Africa. In fact, by 2012, ABS-CBN has sold over 30,000 hours of content to more than 30 territories worldwide. Basically, if you ever watched the drama from the Philippines, chances are it was a product of ABS-CBN. I even asked some friends what they remember watching, and the two most common answers was Pangako Sayo, more popularly known as The Promise, and Mara Clara, both of which aired in countries like Japan, Austria, France, and Brazil. ABS-CBN even had its own local franchise of Big Brother called Pinoy Big Brother. But beyond being entertaining, ABS-CBN also shaped public discourse and social awareness, something that didn't sit well with the government, and sadly, that's what would eventually lead to its shutdown. The network's first serious standoff with the government came in 1972, when then-President Ferdinand Marcos placed the Philippines under martial law. Marcos, paranoid about the growing opposition, shut down ABS-CBN to silence independent media reporting. It would remain closed until 1986 when Marcos' dictator rule came to an end. But this wouldn't be the end of it. Fast forward to 2020 and the network's 25-year broadcast franchise expired. Yes, in the Philippines you actually need a broadcast franchise to run a TV network. ABS-CBN had filed a renewal application in 2014, but Congress kept dragging its feet, which obviously was deliberate. And so, the day after ABS-CBN's franchise expired, the National Telecommunications Commission issued a cease and desist order, demanding that ABS-CBN stop broadcasting over its TV and radio frequencies. Just 2 months later, the House Committee on Legislative Franchises voted 70-11 to deny ABS a new franchise. The reason? The committee cited issues like labor and tax violations, but everyone knew the truth. This was just another gag. Then President Rodrigo Duterte had been a vocal critic of ABS-CBN, accusing the network of, among other things, biased reporting. Despite massive public outcry, protests, and international attention, ABS-CBN's fate was sealed, and it would never air on free TV or radio in the Philippines again. But there is a silver lining to ABS-CBN's story. The network just fully migrated to digital platforms, and they actually have a pretty big YouTube channel, so it's not like they completely ceased operations. They just can't air on TV and radio frequencies. Ending off this first tier is a topic a lot of international viewers really wanted me to cover, and for good reason too, because yeah, this is truly a tragic tale. While MTV Brazil still exists, it's not the MTV Brazil which everyone is familiar with. This is the story of the original Brazilian MTV channel. In 1990, Brazilian media conglomerate Grupo Abril acquired licensing of the MTV brand, and on October 30th of that year, MTV Brazil was launched as an over-the-air network, which meant viewers can access it using antennas rather than requiring a cable or satellite subscription like its American counterpart. The accessibility of this channel created a strong cultural bond with Brazilian youth. It targeted viewers aged 12 to 34 and featured a diverse lineup that included sports, comedy, and journalism. Of the content, 25% was produced locally by Grupo Abril, while 75% was sourced from MTV networks, including international shows and music videos. Some of the channel's most popular shows would be Disc MTV, which was the Brazilian version of Dial MTV, where callers can phone in the 10 most popular songs and play them on TV. Throughout its history, the program had several VJs, including names like Carla Lamarca, Kenya and Kayla Boaventura, Sarah Oliveira, Sabrina Palator, Cuca Lazarado, and Astrid Fontanelle, each of whom contributed to the success and identity of the program over the years. They even had their own version of the VMAs, known as the VMBs, which primarily celebrated Brazilian artists with a few international choices. Over the years, control of the channel has been a tug of war between Viacom and Grupo Abril. In 1996, Viacom acquired a 50% stake in MTV Brazil. However, due to Brazilian law, which restricted non-Brazilian companies from owning more than 30% of a terrestrial network, Viacom was forced to sell 20% of its stake in 2005. By 2009, Grupo Abril purchased Viacom's remaining stake in MTV Brazil, granting them full control for the first time since 1996. This change appeared to benefit the network significantly, and by the 2010s, MTV Brazil had become the largest youth network and the 7th largest terrestrial TV network in Brazil. While music stopped being at the forefront of the network by 2007, it still managed to have a ton of variety, including comedy and lifestyle shows. But tensions eventually began to surface between Viacom and Grupo Abril. In 2010, the American MTV channel had dropped the music television from its name and had circumcised its logo by shortening the M and chopping off the V. Viacom, despite having zero control in the Brazilian channel, wanted the network to adopt the new logo and start adopting reality TV programs like Jersey Shore, to which Grupo Abril said, nah. To give a quick analogy, MTV Brazil was that one employee who refused to put on the new uniform after corporate told him to put it on. Despite that, they caved in and adopted the new logo in 2012, which made people speculate that the network would be sold back to Viacom. Despite the network itself mocking the rumors of a sale, these rumors turned into reality when in mid-2013, it was announced that Grupo Abril would return the MTV brand to Viacom, where it would be revealed that the channel would be relaunching on October 1st on paid TV. Although MTV's fate was imminent, the channel would have a grand send-off. Its last ever program would be a show named O Último Programa do Mundo, or The Last Program in the World, which, according to some, was a satirical show that mocked the end of the channel with irony and dark humor, almost like a self-aware funeral.
Qual o seu feijão favorito?
O feijão branco, talvez.
You can tell they handled the news of the shutdown really well. Following the program, it was then cut to one of the original VJs of the channel, Astrid Fontanelle, delivering a farewell message to his viewers featuring a behind-the-scenes look at the staff and crew celebrating their time at the network with the song Ora Mail by Rita Lee playing in the background, with the final shot of the network being the MTV Brazil logo before fading to black, ending the free-to-air service after 23 years. The following day, Viacom-based MTV Brazil would begin operations as a paid television channel, and yeah, everything that made it special was gone. This channel really felt like a renegade, which I think is what made the channel popular in the first place. Since Viacom never had a majority stake in the network, it was practically a hub for all things Brazil, with the MTV branding attached to it. But tragically, Viacom wanted their IP back. And this is what I just find most tragic, because what I'm able to find on the archives, this channel really had the same energy that classic MTV had in the 80s and 90s, which really makes their farewell all the more depressing. Coming up next, it's more of the discontinued TV iceberg on AmusingLuis. Before we go any further guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to my Patreons. Seriously, your contributions really help bring the channel to life, so thank you. If you enjoy the content and want to help out, consider becoming a patron over on Patreon. Link will be in the description. Anyways, back to the video. This is AmusingLuis. This was a short-lived American cable network launched by Ted Turner on October 26, 1984. It was meant as a competitor to MTV. Tragically though, that wouldn't be the case. While MTV focused on youth and the latest music videos, CMC focused on contemporary and alternative music, offering a mix of soft rock, pop, urban hits, and crossover country. Unlike MTV, which had video jockeys, CMC featured voice-only jockeys, which is similar to radio. And I mean, that kind of made it less interesting, especially when they're playing the same bumpers over and over again. Despite giving it all their efforts, CMC struggled to secure enough cable providers and faced financial challenges, including difficulties to get some of the latest music due to MTV's exclusivity rights. The best they had was Randy Newman. After less than a month, Turner sold the channel to Warner Amex Satellite Entertainment on November 29, 1984, and it was shut down the next day, making it one of the shortest-lived cable channels in US history. Following its closure, Warner Amex would spin off MTV, Nickelodeon, and the remains of CMC to create MTV Networks, which on January 1st, 1985, the channel space that was once cable music channel would become VH1, which has continued to run to this very day. Ah yes, the Spooky Channel. Chiller was an American cable network launched by NBC Universal on March 1st, 2007. It specialized in horror and thriller movies as well as television shows. Some of the programs seen would be from competing studios like Lionsgate, 20th Century Fox, Sony, and Warner Brothers. Although having a wider range of movies on the channel seems appealing, some customers complained that the network often removed gory scenes and that the commercials disrupted the tensions of scary movies. Despite these issues, the channel continued to grow. In 2011, Chiller would launch its own film production studio, Chiller Films, which specialized in indie horror films that either aired on the network or in theaters. Some of the movies produced by the studio would be Stephen Knowles' Remained and Sirens. As time went on, Chiller continued to solidify its position as the #1 horror network when Comcast purchased its competitor, FearNet, merging its programming with Chiller as well as the Sci-Fi Network. Just 2 years later, Chiller would have its first original program, Slasher, an anthology series that centers on a masked killer, or what many articles described as MTV's Scream for adults. Yeah, remember that show? However, following the conclusion of Slasher Season 1, Netflix would pick up the show for Season 2 and 3, marking the end of the first and only original series from Chiller. And from here on out, things just got worse. In 2017, several Chiller sister channels faced closures as NBC Universal began to phase out several of its niche channels. The shutdowns started with Clue on February 1st, followed by Universal HD on June 14th and Esquire Network on June 28th. Chiller was also dropped by numerous cable carriers, which gave the network even less viewers, but it's not like that even mattered, because on November 16th, NBC Universal announced that the Chiller channel would cease operations by the end of the year. After an airing of The Babadook, Chiller would cease operations with a message saying, "Thank you for watching Chiller, good night," along with their website redirecting to the Sci-Fi channel just a few hours later. While the channel would be missed by some, many pointed out that Chiller by its later years really started to go down under, as many of the movies they aired were just bad horror movies and all-day Fear Factor marathons. And considering that streaming was becoming the norm, such a channel like this was not needed anymore. SoapNet was an American cable network that launched in 2000, designed to serve devoted daytime drama fans who couldn't catch their favorite shows during the day. At first, the channel aired primarily same-day encores of ABC soap opera lineup, conveniently scheduled in the evenings and early mornings, ideal for viewers who couldn't catch it live. By the mid-2000s, SoapNet had evolved into a treasure trove for soap opera enthusiasts. It expanded its lineup with vintage primetime soaps like Dallas and Another World, and even secured rights to same-day airings of NBC's Days of Our Lives.
I'm dying. After I'm gone, I want you to marry my wife.
In 2005, SoapNet added reruns of popular Fox shows like Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place. A year later, it even picked up CBS's The Young and the Restless. Although, even with the influx of new and old shows, the trends were not in their favor, as by the late 2010s, the rise of DVRs, on-demand services, and YouTube, combined with the overall decline of the genre, led to the sudden discontinuation of the soap network. Disney eventually pulled the plug, announcing SoapNet would be shut down by the end of 2013. Just before midnight on December 31st, 2013, the network quietly ceased operations, with no farewell or on-air send-off. It would be replaced by Disney Junior, which had technically launched on March 23rd, 2012. However, due to some cable providers opting to keep SoapNet running for a little bit longer, some viewers got the new channel right away, while others didn't see the switch up until SoapNet officially signed off for good.
This is the Dumont Television Network.
Hey, how old is this TV? You could probably get the Dumont network on this thing.
While Dumont Television Network had some experimental broadcasts as early as 1945, it was officially launched on August 15, 1946. It was owned by Alan B. Dumont Laboratories, a pioneer in television equipment and set manufacturing, and briefly stood shoulder to shoulder with the likes of NBC and CBS. Not ABC though. It technically existed, but it was still behind Dumont at the time. The network signed off for good on August 6, 1956, but in just a decade, Dumont delivered an impressive slate of programming that helped shape the medium. Variety fans had Cavalcade of Stars, the original Amateur Hour, and the Maury Amsterdam Show, while drama buffs tuned into shows like The Plainclothesman, Dark of Night, and The Bigelow Theater. For kids and sci-fi fans, there was Captain Video and his Video Rangers, which so happens to be one of TV's earliest science fiction shows, by the way. Dumont was also early in the game with sports, airing the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, along with a steady stream of boxing and wrestling. Even before game shows became TV staples, it tested out early formats like What's the Story and Play the Game. All this in the 1950s. Pretty modern if you ask me. So what happened? Well, a web of issues slowly pulled the plug. Dumont struggled financially from the start. Its ratings and ad revenue never quite matched its competitors, and FCC ownership limits stifled its growth. Not to mention, Paramount Pictures, then a minority stakeholder, refused to either divest or fully commit, effectively leaving the network in limbo. Most of its affiliates were also stuck on UHF, which required expensive adapters that few homes had, and unlike NBC or CBS, it had no radio routes to draw talent, content, or promotional power from. Paramount eventually became no help either, eventually launching its own TV venture and further undercutting Dumont's reach. By 1955, Dumont was reduced mainly to sports and a handful of low-budget shows. Its final sign-off, a boxing match from St. Nicholas Arena on August 6, 1956. Dumont is often called the Forgotten Network because much of its programming archive was lost, leaving behind only scattered memories. But its technical contributions, like pioneering the coaxial cable hookups that made network broadcasting possible, helped shape the industry. And pop culture fanatics know, the Honeymooners began on Dumont's cavalcade of stars before making its move to CBS. Idents was launched in 1999 as Freeview and was created as an initiative to thank DirecTV customers for their year of record growth. The channel featured exclusive broadcasts of music concerts and events, including a concert by the band Yes during their The Ladder tour, which was notable for being the first concert broadcast in TV history to air in HD. It also showcased a Christmas and New Year's special that included a concert by Blondie. Freeview used to be on channel 103, but in 2005 it was moved to 101, where it was also rebranded to the 101 network. The 101 would hop into original programming, beginning with CD USA, a music performance series inspired by its UK counterpart, CD UK. It soon became a haven for shows cancelled by NBC, such as Passions in 2007 and Friday Night Lights in 2008, along with international heads like Underbelly and Call Me Fritz. However, perhaps their longest and most recognized show on the 101 would have to be The Dan Patrick Show. I'm sure it's been on other networks like NBCSN, still, they were the first to broadcast this programming, which had previously only been available on radio. In June of 2011, the network rebranded again, this time as Audience Network. The relaunch coincided with the pickup of the FX original series Damages, which it renewed for 2 more seasons. This marked a pivot towards prestigious programming, positioning Audience as a premium destination like AMC or HBO, but only for DirecTV subscribers. In the following years, they continued to produce additional shows and docuseries for the network. After AT&T acquired DirecTV in 2015, Audience expanded to platforms like AT&T Uverse and the company's skinny bundle service, Watch TV, bringing the subscriber base to around 26 million by 2019. Unfortunately, in January 2020, AT&T announced that Audience Network would cease operations and transition into a preview channel for HBO Max, marking the end for the channel after over 20 years. Although the network's end was imminent, they at least created Idents thanking the viewers for everything. On May 22nd, Audience would shut down, with its final ever program being Black Sabbath, The End of the End. Fitting title. Honestly, I have little memory about this channel. I do remember there was a game show called Rock in a Hard Place, but that's really all I know. I think that show is also lost media. I don't really know.
Hey, this is Larry the Cable Guy. You are watching NASA TV. Get her done. Boy, it's my favorite channel. Seriously.
Ah yes, Space TV. This was a TV station launched all the way back in 1980 by NASA as a way to provide real-time coverage for program managers and engineers of the agency's space shuttle missions, from liftoff to landing. Over time, it expanded its programming to include educational content, archival footage, press conferences, and mission briefings. And yeah, that's really all there is to it. I do remember catching it while I was channel surfing as a kid, but 99% of the time, it was just a static shot of space or mission control. By mid-2024, the channel was beginning to grow outdated. Eventually, NASA decided that the channel would be phased out in favor of its on-demand streaming service, NASA Plus. And so, on August 28th, NASA TV was closed, marking the end of the service after 44 years. RT America was a US-based news channel headquartered in Washington, D.C. and served as the American arm of the Russian government-funded network, Russia Today. Launched in 2010, the network looked like your typical cable news service, offering political commentary, interviews, and news segments aimed at American audiences who were skeptical of traditional US media. Its slogan, "Question More," even positioned it as a provocative alternative to Western outlets, often taking a just asking questions approach that resonated with young left-leaning viewers. As the network evolved, it leaned further into contrarian and conspiratorial narratives, frequently challenging US foreign policy and giving airtime to controversial opinions. One 2010 ad even posed the question, who poses a greater nuclear threat, Barack Obama or Masoud Ahmadinejad? While it was widely known that RT was state-funded, the network constantly claimed editorial independence, and to bolster credibility, it hired well-known American media figures like Dennis Miller, Ed Schultz, Larry King, Jesse Ventura, and Chris Hedges, perhaps to make its motives seem less suspicious. But fast forward to March of 2022, in the wake of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, RT America would quickly cease operations, right before cable providers and streaming platforms began dropping the channel en masse. Within days, its production company, TNR Productions, shut down and laid off its entire staff. While the global RT network still exists, its American and UK branches have effectively been erased.
The ultimate challenge for brides determined to win a $100,000 dream wedding. It's all on Wedding Central. Get engaged.
Divorce rates went up during this channel's existence. Just wanted to say that, Timmy. Wedding Central was a short-lived American cable channel that, as the name implies, is focused on programs based on weddings and brides. Most of the shows were reruns and spin-offs from WeTV, which already had a strong lineup of bridal-themed shows, including Bridezillas and American Wedding Cakes. Due to the cable channel being available on Cablevision systems and having a limited reach among Mediacom and Time Warner cable users, it had a very low audience rate. The channel was so niche that its only original show would end up being a 6-episode web series named Bridal Breakdown, described as a show that pranks brides right before their wedding day to make them think that they're part of a New York-based documentary on weddings. Sounds super exciting, I know. However, I really couldn't find any footage of this show, so I don't know, lost media case? The channel would shut down as a result of corporate restructuring. In 2011, Cablevision, which was pretty much on its deathbed by this point, spun off Rainbow Media and rebranded itself to what is known today as AMC Networks, which brought AMC, IFC, Sundance Channel, and WeTV under one roof. As for Wedding Central, it did not fit into the strategy of the new entity, and on July 1st, 2011, Wedding Central would shut down on the same day AMC Networks went public.
See music legends like Bob Marley on Sounds Like Trio, weeknights at 6 Eastern. Trio, Pop Culture TV.
Trio was a niche cable channel launched all the way back in 1994 by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and Power Broadcasting Inc. Not much is known about its early history, at least from what I can find, but according to some old press releases, it was a general entertainment channel that featured the most successful contemporary dramas, documentaries, and films from Canada, the UK, and Australia. At the time, it was the largest exporter of Canadian TV programs to the US. In 2000, the channel was sold to the USA Network and later became a part of NBC Universal. Under their control, Trio was rebranded as a smart pop culture focused channel catering to media-savvy audiences, having aired critically acclaimed and under-the-radar series, documentaries, and cultural retrospectives, such as Brilliant But Cancelled. Despite its loyal audience, Trio struggled with limited distribution, reaching only about 20 million homes by 2004. This lack of reach resulted in providers like DirecTV to drop the channel from its lineup, slashing its availability by nearly 2/3. By late 2005, it would be announced that Trio would transition to a broadband-only platform under the BravoTV.com banner on January 1st, 2006, where the channel space would be replaced with the crime mystery channel Sleuth, which was later renamed The Clue. Azteca America was an American Spanish network launched in 2001 and is based on TV Azteca, the second largest mass media company in Mexico. The project was first announced in September of 2000 when TV Azteca and Papas Telecasting revealed plans to launch a new Spanish-language broadcast network by mid-2001, with the hope of it reaching 65 to 70% of the US Hispanic population by 2002. As part of this partnership, Azteca, which owned 20% of this stake, would provide programming licenses sourced from TV Azteca's 4 television networks in Mexico: Azteca 1, Azteca 7, ADN 40, and AMAS in the US, Canada, and Puerto Rico. As for Papa's Telecasting, they would be the ones responsible for rolling out stations across the US, with plans to launch at least 10 affiliates, most of which were low-powered stations, including one in Chicago, which I think was like Channel 24. But some critics believe Azteca's socially and politically driven novelas would have a hard time catering to bilingual Americans. Nevertheless, they pulled ahead, and on July 28, 2001, Azteca's first station, Casa TV, would launch in the LA market. At first, TV Azteca planned to purchase additional stations, but by October 2001, that plan had changed. Instead of purchasing additional stations, they opted to grow the network through affiliate partnerships. Based on that date, I'm sure no major global events influenced that decision. In early 2002, Papa's Telecasting exited the venture after the network had expanded into markets like Reno, Salt Lake City, and San Francisco. Still, by September, Azteca America had reached only 28% of its target market. It wasn't until 2004 that it finally reached the 70% market reach. Azteca didn't just have novelas though. A news division launched in 2003 with weekday newscasts, a 3-hour morning show, and a sports roundtable show called Deportes Caliente. It also offered sports content, including Liga MX matches from teams like Atlas, Morelia, Tijuana, and Veracruz, until Univision snagged the rights in 2017. Other sports shows included Lucha Azteca, a weekend Lucha Libre showcase, and a boxing series known as Box Azteca. In its final years, the network even partnered with BN Sports to air live matches from Spain's La Liga's second division during the 2018-2019 season. So yeah, content-wise, Azteca really stood out. It really felt like the alternative choice, offering sports and programming that you normally didn't get from Telemundo or Univision. That being said, being third place in a market where it was pretty competitive wasn't going to cut it. On November 29, 2017, TV Azteca announced the sale of its US-based network to HC2 Network Incorporated, which is now known as Innovate Corporation. The reason for this was that TV Azteca had decided to focus on strengthening its core operations in Mexico while maximizing profitability from its international ventures. Although the channel was no longer in the hands of the original owner, HC2 would still have a 7-year programming and service agreement with Azteca to continue the distribution of its content and logo. Despite having the rights and all, HC2 really never did anything to make the network any better, and before the 7-year agreement came to an end, it would be announced on October 21st, 2022 that Azteca America would be ceasing operations by the end of the year after 22 years of operation. Frankly, I do remember watching this channel a lot on weekend nights. If you think about it, this was like the only free-to-air network that would air boxing or lucha libre. So yeah, truly Azteca had some variety that Telemundo and Univision didn't offer.
The people you want to know more about.
It's a nice balance of humor and tragedy.
The Biography Channel, 24 hours a day.
I remember this channel. I never actually watched it, but it was one of those networks that appeared in almost every cable package manual back in the day. Now, imagine launching a whole channel based on a single show. That's basically what the Biography Channel was. The channel was named after the American television docuseries Biography that had been in syndication since 1962. The first version was created by David Wolper and Jack Haley Jr. and was narrated by none other than Mike Wallace, who was just stepping into journalism at the time. Each episode covered the life of a notable figure using narration, on-camera interviews, photographs, and archival footage. Honestly, this just sounds exactly like what a lot of YouTubers do today. That's not a jab, keep them coming guys. While the original version of Biography was short-lived and in production in 1964, it briefly came back in 1979 with David Jansen as host, but this was also short-lived, only lasting a year. It wouldn't be until 1984 that Biography found its real footing when the Arts and Entertainment Network, now A&E, acquired the broadcasting rights. They later purchased the trademark in 1990 and transformed Biography into a full-fledged media franchise throughout the 1990s and 2000s. In fact, Biography is still on A&E to this very day, with recent documentaries like WWE Legends keeping the brand alive. Anyways, back to the late 90s. On November 16, 1998, A&E Television Networks launched the Biography Channel. With hundreds of episodes already produced, this network became a hit among fans of real-life storytelling. This network was so popular, it even expanded into the UK and Ireland in 2000. Despite its early success and multiple Emmy wins, viewership began to decline by the mid-2000s. In August 2006, Biography was pulled from A&E and became exclusive to the Biography Channel. But then came 2007, and yeah, that year television underwent a significant transformation, and the Biography Channel was no exception. It rebranded itself as simply Bio, and rather than solely focusing on biographical content, the channel began emphasizing on true stories about fascinating people. Hey, I have a pitch. It's called the Chris Chan Chronicles. It'd be like the SpongeBob of the network. Just kidding, but can you imagine? Unfortunately, this rebrand didn't really help. By 2013, Bio was struggling, pulling in just half the industry average per subscriber, and was getting crushed by its own sister channels like A&E, Lifetime, and History. Enter Jana Bennett. She was hired as the new president of Bio, and if that name sounds familiar, she was the same exec who helped transform TLC into what it is today, so you know she did a fantastic job. On December 13th, 2013, A&E Networks announced that Bio would be rebranded as FYI, a new lifestyle-focused cable network that was set to launch in the summer of 2014. The goal? Well, it was to modernize and appeal to younger, more digitally savvy viewers underserved by traditional television. FYI still exists today, but like Bio before it, it hasn't exactly thrived. As of 2024, it averages just 48,000 viewers, a 25% drop from the previous year, making it the worst performing network in the A&E family. Even Vice TV has more viewers, and that just says a lot. Looking at FYI's current schedule, it's mostly reruns of Duck Dynasty, Storage Wars, and Tiny House Nation. What happened to Variety, man?
Hey, this is Rob Zombie, and you're watching MTV X.
Cool concept, too bad it didn't last long. MTV-X was a short-lived sister channel to the much larger MTV network, and its program primarily focused on rock music. Think punk, metal, and grunge, basically my kind of music. I'm throwing my fist in the air knowing I was still in diapers when this was out. The network also showcased music from unknown artists of the time, contributing to the rise of bands like Finger Eleven, Disturbed, Primus, and many more. Unfortunately, the network was discontinued on May 2nd, 2002 and was replaced by MTV Jams. There wasn't an exact reason as to why this channel was shut down, but it is speculated that the 9/11 attacks caused a shift that led to a decline in the genre. MTV literally saw the second plane hit and said, yeah, we need to get rid of this. Shameful. Personally, I think that's bull because I do remember MTV being big on rock and heavy metal back in the 2000s, so maybe they couldn't justify having a channel dedicated to a single genre.
Watch ordinary get flipped into extraordinary. This is television with a twist.
Twist was a digital multicast television network launched by Tenga in April 2021, with a focus on lifestyle and reality programs aimed at women between 25 and 54. Its lineup leaned heavily on older unscripted TV shows that had aired years prior on other networks. So you had shows like Dance Moms, Clean House, Top Chef Masters, and Tiny House Nation, just to name a few. But Twist wasn't a throwback channel. It also featured a segment called Share Your Twist, inviting viewers to submit personal stories about unexpected challenges they faced and how they overcame them. At its peak, Twist was available in over 40 markets, including major ones like New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Philadelphia, reaching about 70% of US households. Despite a relatively recent launch, Twist already felt like a relic of the transitional TV era, and after less than 2 years, the network was shut down on December 31st, 2023. While it was a niche channel, it at least got a proper send-off, a 5 Stages of Grief promo to mark its final days, so, at least there's that. By the 2000s, reality TV had become majorly popular globally thanks to shows like Big Brother, Survival, and more recently at the time, American Idol. So, what better way to capitalize on this genre than to make a new channel? In 2005, News Corporation unveiled its ambitious plans to launch Fox Reality, a 24-hour American cable network entirely devoted to reality TV programming from Fox. Set to debut on May 24th, Fox Reality aimed to be the first dedicated all-reality channel in the US. The channel would showcase reality shows syndicated from other networks, including ABC, CBS, NBC, The CW, as well as some international reality shows. Despite reality TV's continued popularity and the channel being in over 50 million homes, the genre alone wasn't enough to keep a full-time cable channel afloat. And after 5 years on the air, News Corp announced that it would shut down the Fox Reality channel by March of 2010. While the channel did go off the air on that date, an automatic loop of Fox Reality programming remained on services like DirecTV and Dish for a little bit longer, until the channel was rebranded to the American version of Nat Geo Wild, which is basically what Nat Geo used to be. I remember this channel growing up. Good times. Mundos would begin as Gems TV on October 10th, 1993 and was owned by Empresas 1BC, a Venezuelan media enterprise that made the entire channel's focus on women of Hispanic or Latin origin. Unfortunately, Gems struggled to gain significant distribution from the start, reaching only 7.2 million subscribers in Latin America and 6.4 million in the US, with just 2.8 million being Hispanic households. Because of that, by 2000, the channel was looking to sell itself. Originally, Univision was looking to acquire the network, but the deal would fall through over concerns about cable coverage and long-term distribution access. Eventually, Telemundo's communication group, then a joint venture between Sony Pictures Entertainment and Media Liberty, stepped in, bought the channel, and soon rebranded to Mundos, like Mundos, like worlds in Spanish. Back in the day, Mundos' programming was a mix of scripted series, reality shows, and even home shopping segments. They even offered reimagined Spanish language adaptations like Ángeles, a take on Charlie's Angels, and a version of the dating game, which I think was Dulce Corazones. I could be wrong on that, I'm just guessing, but I do remember that show being popular a lot during this time. Compared to MTV, Mundos would still air music videos well into the early 2010s, and consisted of a mix of music videos in English and Spanish from a variety of genres. Most of it was R&B, rap, pop, and reggaeton. Other things that would air would also be Spanish replays of WWE shows including Raw, SmackDown, ECW, and that shitty version of NXT. But perhaps one of the most iconic shows on the network had to be 2011's I Love Jenny, a reality TV show following the life of Mexican-American singer Jenny Rivera and her family. But tragically, on December 9th, 2012, Jenny Rivera was killed in a plane crash following a sold-out performance in Mexico. And man, when this happened, this really shocked the world. I mean, she was still one of the biggest Latin American stars around, so this truly sent shockwaves. Surprisingly, despite the tragedy, I Love Jenny's third season went on as forward and was a massive success, achieving the show's highest ever third quarter primetime ratings. With strong viewership across various time slots and demographics, by the time the show ended, Mundos had become the most watched Hispanic cable network during Wednesday and Saturday nights. Momentum would increase for Mundos when in August 2013, NBC Sports began to incorporate the network as a Spanish simulcast of sporting events, beginning with the Premier League and later NASCAR in 2015. By this point, Mundos was completely different. Music videos would be gone by this point, and more scripted and reality-based shows would start to take over the time slot. It wouldn't be long until NBC Universal decided to revamp the channel. On December 24, 2014, it was announced that Mundos would rebrand as NBC Universal on February 1, 2015, to coincide with the network's Spanish language broadcast of Super Bowl 49. Just 2 years later, the name would be shortened once again to just Universal. Before A&E, we had A&W. There was also the Arts Channel and the Entertainment Channel. Back in the 1980s, cable television was spreading fast across American households, and the big three networks, CBS, NBC, and ABC, were starting to lose eyeballs. To stay in the game, they each launched their own cable experiments, but they all went about it the wrong way. While newcomers like MTV and ESPN leaned into pop culture and sports, the big three went the refined route with classical arts programming. CBS created CBS Cable, a fine arts channel that ended up as a flaming disaster, NBC backed the Entertainment Channel, and ABC had the Arts Channel. The Alpha Repertory television service was a joint venture between ABC and the Hearst Corporation. Just like CBS Cable, this one too focused on highbrow content like opera and ballet, as well as dramatic theater productions and select foreign films. However, unlike CBS Cable and other cultural channels like Bravo and PBS, Arts shared channel space with Nickelodeon during the night. And while sharing channel space with Nickelodeon doesn't sound too bad, remember, this was Silver Ball era Nickelodeon, a time when the network was one of the lowest rated channels in all of cable. And with Arts airing during the graveyard shift, it wouldn't be shocking if this channel had little to no viewers. While Arts was floundering, NBC's Entertainment Channel wasn't doing any better either. Launched in 1982 as a joint venture between RCA and Rockefeller Center Incorporated, it offered imported BBC comedies, Broadway plays, action shows, kids content, and foreign films. But it came with a catch, a price tag of $8 to $12 a month, and only about 50,000 subscribers were willing to pay. By early 1983, NBC announced that it would shut down the channel by the end of March. Just when both channels seemed destined for the same fate as CBS Cable, instead of folding completely, the two struggling networks decided to join forces. On April 1st, 1984, Arts and the Entertainment Channel merged to form the Arts and Entertainment Network, otherwise known as A&E. The idea was to combine the cultural focus of arts with the broader entertainment appeal of the entertainment channel, creating a hybrid that could survive in a growing cable landscape. As part of this new venture, RCA and NBC exited this venture, leaving A&E as a 50-50 partnership between ABC and Hearst, which remained the case when Disney purchased ABC in 1996, inheriting its share in A&E. Today, A&E is still around and is one of the biggest cable networks to this day. Although, just like the rest of cable, its programming has definitely shifted more towards reality TV and away from its ballet and British programming.
You are now watching Superstation WGN, your home for movies, comedy, action, and more. Get it all, get it here. Superstation WGN.
America's very own. If you're from Chicago or somewhere else, you probably know what WGN Channel 9 is, but if you don't, I'll give you a quick rundown since I'm at least familiar with the local station. Launched all the way back in 1948 by Robert R. McCormick, then owner of the Chicago Tribune and WGN Radio, the local TV station became the second commercial television station to launch in Illinois, with the first being WBKB Channel 4, which is now known as WBBM TV Channel 2. Funny enough, WGN originally began as a Dumont affiliated network. It also coexisted with CBS, but ironically enough, Dumont was its strongest affiliation. Eventually, CBS programming was reduced to just a weekday morning time slot, and by 1953, it was dropped altogether. Unfortunately, sticking with Dumont proved to be a bust, as the company went bankrupt in 1956, turning WGN into an independent station, where it remained that way for the next 39 years. Which is kinda insane considering we're talking about the 1950s, when ABC, NBC, and CBS were already major players in Chicago, so the fact that WGN managed to not only survive, but thrive is impressive. During its independence, WGN aired a mix of sitcoms, cartoons, feature films, religious programs, and locally produced news. What truly established their reputation was their capacity to broadcast local sports teams, notably the Chicago Bulls, Blackhawks, White Sox, and most famously, the Chicago Cubs. This partnership with the Cubs endured for 72 years, ending in 2019 when the team launched its own regional sports network, Marquee Sports, which honestly is kinda sad to hear. Anyways, thanks to all this programming, Channel 9 became Chicago's leading independent station from the early 1960s through the early 1990s. Today, WGN is still around and remains to be one of the more popular stations in the area. I mean, I watch it, so I guess that's my seal of approval. Now that you have some background on the local station, it's time to bring up the superstation. WGN America launched on November 9th, 1978 as a direct satellite feed of WGN TV, airing the Chicago station's programs and ads, except for certain sports events that had to be blacked out due to league broadcast rules. The local station managed to go national when United Video Satellite Group uplinked WGN's signal to satellite, allowing cable systems across the country to carry it. This essentially transformed WGN into a national superstation, making it the second US superstation after Ted Turner's WTBS out of Atlanta. This status played a big role in making the Cubs, White Sox, and Bulls household names nationwide, especially the Cubs in the 80s and the Bulls in the 90s. WGN's access to these games made it essential for sports fans. However, this also resulted in issues regarding broadcasting rights, with warnings that the cable might be removed from cable lineups. Beyond sports, WGN's 9 o'clock local news was also popular nationally, which is also how many people got to know Tom Skilling, who had been with WGN since 1978 and had only just retired in February of 2024. Truly the GOAT of weather reporting. WGN built its identity around a mix of classic movies, syndicated sitcoms, dramas, cartoons, and original first-run shows, many produced by Tribune Entertainment. Its national reach helped boost the profiles of Chicago-based programs like Garfield Goose and Friends and Bozo the Clown. Sadly, when the show was reformatted to meet FCC educational content requirements, its appeal faded. Rip Bozo. By 1995, for the first time in nearly 4 decades, WGN had lost its independent status and had become an affiliate of the WB network. By default, the larger WGN station began airing WB programs, with the exception of Kids WB, which was actually broadcast on another Chicago network, WCIU. By 1999, WB content was removed from the nationwide Superstation feed. The change was likely made because WGN's national broadcast was drawing viewers away from local WB affiliates, which depended heavily on local advertising revenue. Ironically though, this marked the beginning of WB's decline, as by the 2000 television season, the network had fallen to 6th place, now trailing behind its main rival, UPN. In 2001, Tribune Broadcasting gained full control of WGN's Superstation by acquiring UVTV for $106 million. This change transformed WGN from a passive superstation to an active one, similar to how TBS had previously separated from its local Atlanta feed. From that point on, the national version of WGN began to diverge further from its local station. On September 10th, 2001, that date's correct. The superstation was rebranded as WGN Superstation. However, just a year later, it underwent another rebranding to Superstation WGN, featuring a new logo that frankly still doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know, to me it just looks like a car emblem. Things would remain the same until April 1st, 2007, when real estate mogul Sam Zell acquired Tribune for $8.2 billion, taking the company private. This led to major changes across Tribune's media assets, including Superstation WGN, which was renamed to WGN America in 2008. Of course, this came with yet another logo change, because God forbid you hire yourself a good graphic designer. By this point, WGN America had become a shell of its former self. The network had stopped airing local programming and began losing broadcasting rights to Chicago's sports teams. By the end of 2014, WGN had completely dropped all sports and later their 9 o'clock news. Instead, they shifted focus to original shows like Salem and Manhattan, aiming to reinvent themselves as a general entertainment channel. So yeah, they ditched Tom Skilling and gave us mediocre dramas. For many fans, this was just a step too far. Unfortunately, WGN America's original programming struggled to attract a large enough audience to justify its cost. By 2017, the network canceled all of its shows and began looking for a buyer. Sinclair Broadcasting, former owners of Ring of Honor, believe it or not, attempted to purchase WGN America's parent company, along with its other assets. However, the deal collapsed due to a breach of contract of some sorts. Shortly after, on December 3rd, 2018, Nexstar Media Group swooped in, acquiring Tribune's assets, including WGN America for $6.4 billion in cash and debt. As a Chicago resident, this was a big deal. WGN was mostly independent for the most part, so just seeing it under a new corporate regime just made it feel like the end of an era. Under Nexstar's leadership, WGN underwent a transformation that nobody really saw coming. In January 2020, Nexstar announced plans to launch News Nation, a 3-hour national primetime newscast airing on WGN America. Even with the pandemic unfolding, the team pushed forward, and just 8 months later, News Nation officially premiered. But then they would take things even further. Just 6 months after its premiere, on March 1st, 2021, WGN America officially rebranded as News Nation, an entirely new cable news network positioned as an alternative to mainstream outlets, aiming to provide fact-based, unbiased reporting. This marked the end of the WGN branded network after 42 years. While it trails behind major players like Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC in overall viewership, it has managed to carve out a niche. According to all sides, News Nation is rated as centrist by viewers. So yeah, take that information as you will. And there you have it, guys. That was part 1 of the Defunct TV channel's Iceberg. If you made it all the way to the end, you're an absolute real one. Seriously, I mean it when I say that. If it weren't for the ones still watching right now, I probably would have never reached 100,000 subscribers. Even back when I hit 10,000, that already felt huge. Now here we are. Here's to the road to 1 million, I guess. So, stay tuned. Part 2 is coming soon. I should probably find an editor. There's also Patreon if you want to help out. Anyways, my name is Luis, and I am out.